Hello, very welcome to Progress Junior Golf with Content Live Golf. My name is Steve Jackson, and this is Ian Waterhouse.
Hello, everybody. Steve, episode 11. Here we are. I'm excited.
Absolutely. This podcast, as we know, is all about junior golf. It's about the next generation of golfers. Today, we're going to be talking about health and fitness in junior golf. You're supposed to be fit, aren't you, to play golf?
Yep.
Well, are we? And in particular, our junior golfers, because it's important that they stay fit to make sure they don't pick up injuries. And also by being fit, it means you become a better golfer, hopefully. We've got one live guest on, which is golf fitness trainer Jamie Greaves. He's worked with some of the top professionals and amateurs in the game of all ages, actually. But he's also worked with a lot of junior golfers as well. Also, we've got pre-recorded interviews with European Challenge Tour professional Ryan Gavin. And we got junior golfer Ryan Gavin. He's 16 years old, but this time last year he was diagnosed with a broken back caused by playing perhaps a little bit too much golf with a swing which wasn't quite suited to the power that he was putting through the golf ball. This is Jamie Greaves, who's a golf fitness trainer.
I was a junior golfer. I played golf since I was about 8. Got to a good standard, kind of plus figures. I'd always been into fitness. Probably from my sporting background, I played, cricket, I played rugby. So I played lots of other sports where fitness was quite important. Kind of wanted to stay in golf, even if it wasn't on a playing level. So I went down the kind of strength and conditioning route. Certainly in the last couple of years with kind of things like what Bryson has done, golf fitness has, really come to the forefront. I kind of work with everyone really, all different ages, all different abilities. I think youngest person I've trained is about 7 or 8. Quite a lot of my current clients are, junior golfers, aspiring kind of college and tour players. They would like to hit the ball further, obviously. I don't think I've yet to meet a golfer that wants to hit it shorter. If you are fit enough, you can play golf into your 70s, 80s, even 90s. The longer hitters generally are going to be higher up the money lists. They're going to have more chance to win tournaments. So distance is certainly an element of the tour player, but also life on tour is very, very stressful. There's a lot going on. And just being generally healthy and fit is going to enable them to cope with that more and potentially reduce likelihood of injury. I think the junior section distance is the real one. Most juniors want to really smash it, particularly if they've got aspirations of playing, golf to a good standard. The juniors growing up now, if you can't hit the ball a long way, it's very difficult to get to a high standard of golf. Distance is now pretty much the main priority for most kind of up and coming players. And I think quite a lot of the juniors kind of recognise that now.
You've got to remember, a junior is still developing. The muscles are still developing. As an adult, we're sort of at our height, and then we can grow from there. If you take a junior and you muscle build them too much, you can seriously hold them back longer term. So I certainly think for juniors, it's perhaps more technique and building them to do the right exercises and perhaps more stamina, that type of thing, as opposed to just muscle. And it's a bit like in football as well. If you're 6'2" and you can run quick, you've got a better chance of making it than somebody who's 5'7", who might be more skillful. If you can hit the ball a long way, at juniors, it gets noticed a lot more, but you might have absolutely no ability around the green. But because you can hit it a long way, you might get a chance. Whereas you might not be able to hit it as far, but you might be a cracking touch around the green. But because it's not the showpiece, it doesn't quite get noticed.
There's lots of things that make a good golfer. I would say distance just makes your ceiling higher. I think you only have to look at the best players in the world to see that. I mean, Scheffler, Rahm, Bryson, Rory, Koepka, and if you look, even if you go on to like the ladies' game now, last year the majors were won by I think Nelly Korda, Tanakit, people that hit it a long way. It's not that the only trick they have is distance. They're brilliant golfers who also happen to hit the ball miles as well. It's very hard to beat a player like a Scheffler or a John Rahm, spotting them 40 yards off the tip, because they're so good with the rest of their game. You can't afford to be behind them that far. You are always going to get, anomalies, and the shorter hitters will win events here and there because they'll just have great weeks, they'll hold everything, that kind of thing. But the data will show you that distance has a pretty good correlation to earnings, to world rankings, to scoring average, all that kind of thing.
We've got an interview with Ryan Evans where he talks almost exactly about that type of thing as well. Initially, he talks about the injuries that he's had, which have not been too many, just the one major knee injury. But he does go on and talk about how his game has had to change, and that's in very recent years.
I can't see how, oh no, if I was training and had stronger legs or stronger this, it would have prevented it. It was just one of them things that's happened. Whenever I've gone down the route of trying to get stronger and stuff, I've started having shoulder niggles. So then I've had to take a couple of weeks off. I'm not saying don't do the fitness side, because it's proven that the guys that are athletic, getting stronger, getting quicker, getting faster, are out there smashing it. But I don't think it's for everyone. I 100% do agree with it can prevent injuries. But I also think if you don't do it correctly, it can bring on injuries. So if you're going to go down the route of, getting fitter and stronger for golf, go and see a professional who is golf specific. Don't just go at the gym and start smashing the gym thinking, I need to get like Bryson. From when I turned pro to now, it's changed so much. There's 20, 21-year-olds now coming out on the scene, even younger, just smashing it miles and don't even care where it goes. They're just smashing it 330, 340 up there and wedging it on the green. Whereas I feel like I'm driving it quite well and hitting it straight at 290, but then going in with 7-iron. So the game is about, hitting it far these days. And I think that's the kids are learning to smash it and then straighten it up at a later date. I'm sure the stats on the tour and stuff that hitting a wedge from the rough, the proximity to the hole is probably going to still be closer than hit a 7-iron from the fairway.
It is far easier to add speed when you're young. Basically, between the ages of 8 and 15 is your best chance to start to develop speed. So if you take the old school approach of, make your swing technically sound, look pretty, find the middle of the fairway, and then when you get to 16, 18, start to add speed, you've missed your window. You are never going to be as fast as what you could have been. Learn to hit it far, learn to swing it fast when you're young, and then when you're 15, 16, start to rein it in a little bit and work on some of the other areas of the game, because then you will always have natural speed. So it's a complete flip reversal to, even going back 15 years, developing that explosiveness, that fast twitch kind of thing when you were kind of younger. Now, obviously, that always needs to be in line with keeping the game enjoyable, because if you're a junior golfer and you hit it miles, but you're 5 off the tee on every hole, you're probably going to give the game up because it's not that enjoyable. So there does always need to be that kind of balance between speed and distance and accuracy. For most people, is what creates extra speed quite a lot of the time is actually good technique. To swing the club faster, generally you're probably doing some good things in your golf swing. Misinformation that people think that added distance automatically means decreasing accuracy. Quite often it doesn't mean that.
This sounds good for golf, because we want to get juniors into the game, and we talk about getting them into the game, and what they want to do is they want to see the ball in the air and they want to see it go a long way. And if we're telling them just go out there and hit the ball as hard as you can and enjoy it, and it's good for you, this is a positive thing, surely.
At the end of the day, if you want to play good golf, you need more than just the ability to hit the ball a long way. But certainly most of us, when you're just starting golf, particularly, going to the driving range and trying to hit the ball a long way is probably quite a fun way of learning the game.
Part of golf is the tactics of golf, and Bryson DeChambeau has been mentioned on a few. When he won that US Open, a lot of people criticised him for saying all he's doing is smashing it as hard as he possibly can. But he had a perfect game plan for that golf course, whereby he knew that if he put it within 100 yards of his wedge play was so good, he would be able to get it a lot closer than someone who is hitting it from 170 yards back, he's saying. So it can come in as part of the game plan of learning how to play the game of golf, can't it?
Oh, absolutely. Bryson is a smart man. His strategy for that US Open was perfect. So all the data now that we have, regarding like strokes gained and stuff, just shows how important distance is. And like Ryan talked about, you are better off being 20, 30 yards further up, being in the rough, than you are being 20, 30 yards further back and being in the fairway. If you can hit the ball long and stay out of trouble, even if it's not necessarily on the fairway, probably over the course of a round or over the course of a tournament, that's going to be beneficial. And that's all Bryson done at Winged Foot. Those fairways were so hard to hit anyway that even the accurate drivers were missing a reasonable amount of fairways, but they were missing fairways where they had 200 yards into the green. He was missing them with 100 yards into the green.
We have got an interview with a junior golfer called Ryan Gavin. This is a young lad who's 16 years old now. A year ago, he was diagnosed with a bad back.
I just basically started to feel some pain, and then a couple of tournaments later, I had to withdraw, and I had to get it checked out at the hospital. I went for an MRI scan, and then found out the bad news. I've had like slight pains around the back, but nothing as painful as that.
And what was the explanation of how it came about then? What did they say to you?
So it's pretty much a combination of pretty much a bad golf swing or quite a major error in my swing, and then playing too much golf with that swing. So it just kind of, over a course of hitting a lot of balls, just didn't really like it. The swing that I had, it wasn't a terrible swing, but as I started to get faster, I started to swing the club obviously a lot faster. As I grew and everything, it just took its toll, and it wasn't going to last. It wasn't a sustainable swing. I've loved golf for years now. Always playing as much as I can. And it was in the middle of the golf season as well, so I was obviously playing a lot of multi-day events and hitting a lot of balls as well.
And so when it was first diagnosed, pretty much, well, was it straight away, you are not allowed to play golf from now onwards? Was that the case?
Yeah. Well, I physically couldn't play golf, so that kind of decision made itself. And they recommended 8 weeks, pretty much not doing any physical activity. It was really frustrating missing the second half of the season. I had a good start to the season as well. I had some good finishes, so I was playing good golf. But I was still feeling a bit of pain all the way through to October, which is when I had my first competition back.
Did it feel, were you nervous?
Definitely more nervous than I had been throughout the whole year.
But obviously from a health point of view, were you wary and a little bit scared the fact that it could come back? Were you nervous in that sense?
It was definitely at the back of my mind. I just think it's better if you try and just completely erase that from your brain. Redesigning my swing, eliminating all the side bend, which was the issue for the injury. Just becoming healthier all around as well. Make sure injury-free is going to be my priority for 2022. Doing a lot of weight training, working on flexibility, all the sorts of stuff that you need for the physical side of golf. I'd say I'll continue with that at pretty much the same rate, because it wasn't a problem for my injury last year. 15 is quite young. You don't expect to have to think about injuries a lot. And I say I definitely underthought, planning my season last year. Played a lot of 36 holes, multi-day events, like week after week. And I'm thinking this year, I'm going to try and avoid back-to-back weeks as much as possible. 6-hour car journey isn't going to be good for my back in anyway, so to avoid that as much as possible is definitely a good idea. Trying to hit the ball as hard as I can, trying to find out my club head speed. It's not really as important to me as it was last year. I'm not really chasing ball speed as much, just kind of trying to build a good strength to be at a good level with it, really.
The positives you take is the fact that you've come through this, the fact that you know how to deal with these types of disappointments. Is that something which you're trying to take the positive out of?
Yeah, it's definitely made me a lot mentally stronger on and off the golf course. It's almost been a good thing in some ways.
So that's Ryan Gavin there talking about his broken back. How much is it a balance of trying to make sure that they are aware of their own fitness at that age as well, though?
We can never prevent injuries. Injuries are multifactorial. We play sport, and that's one of the things that will happen in sport. People are going to get injuries, particularly the way that golf is going now. Probably injuries are going to increase because of the explosive nature of the game, because the speeds are going up, because of the volume of golf that's being played. When we're swinging a golf club, about 8 times body weight is going through our back. So there's a lot of force that goes through the back, lower back in particular, during a golf swing. Where Ryan was describing it, lower right, that's quite a common injury site. So certainly mechanics can have a big impact on injuries. It doesn't matter whether they're a junior or a senior, you're going to have lower back is going to be the main one. You're going to have wrist is a real common one, shoulder as well. The body adapts to how we kind of, load it in the golf swing. And if we start changing that, or we start stressing an area more than kind of we're used to, we can get kind of pain and injuries in that position. 80% of golf injuries are overuse related. So pretty much if you've got injured playing golf, there's a fair chance it's because of an overuse injury.
But how do you stop a junior golfer playing golf? Because we all want them to play golf, don't we? We all want them to play in competitions.
Yeah. What we'd be trying to avoid is what's called a spike in workload. The body has a capacity that, that it can cope with normally. And our workload generally is probably below that capacity. So the body's quite happy. When we get a spike in a workload is when it goes above what the body can cope with. So your typical junior golfer is playing once or twice a week, maybe going to the driving range, once a week or something. They get to Easter school holidays and they're playing 36 holes a day. Suddenly they've gone from, 36 holes a week, and now they're playing like 200 overnight. And the body hasn't had time to adjust for that or to cope. They weren't used to making golf swings. They weren't used to playing rounds of golf, and they went nuts. And so the best way to mitigate that really is to firstly be aware of that, and try as much as you can not to do anything too crazy. Most people don't realize this. Once I explain it to them and you start seeing it and you're like, oh, that makes sense, they only think about it once they've got injured. The other flip side of that is you can increase your body's capacity. So that's where strength training comes in. 80% of golf injuries are overuse related. Strength training can halve that. Now, again, that doesn't mean if you strength train, you won't get injured. It just means that you can probably get away with a little bit more in terms of workload. So it's balancing those two things. It's trying to get as strong as you can, and then trying to manage workload and manage all the other stuff that goes into it. Strength training for juniors is perfectly safe. It's one of the most common questions I get from parents of junior golfers. My girl is 12, 13. Can she train with you? And the answer is always yes. Still a very prevalent myth that, don't weight train until you're 16, don't weight train until you're 18.
Yeah.
It is perfectly safe for, 8, 10, 12-year-olds to be weight training. It's not going to stunt growth. It's not going to do anything negative. That has kind of all been completely disproven.
But making sure that they get proper advice from someone like yourself about that.
Yeah. That doesn't mean I'm going to, put them on a load up a bar and get them back squatting straight away. It could be as simple as, doing some press ups from home. And that's generally speaking for certainly most of my junior golfers. When we're looking at upper body development, that is probably one of my go-tos, is start doing some push-ups. We have a great opportunity when we're young to, learn some good movements, get into some good positions. Most juniors are very mobile. Most adults aren't very mobile. If we can maintain that mobility when we're a junior all the way through our life, that's going to be beneficial. Exploring movement, learning some solid techniques on exercises, having fun. At least if you can make it fun, when they're young, the chances are they might keep doing it through kind of later years. So I have a lot of my juniors doing jumping training. They'll be throwing balls around. They'll be, having movement challenges like climbing stuff, trying to, I've got hurdles in my studio that they have to kind of go over and under, like obstacle courses, that kind of thing.
I really want to get to the interview with Ryan Evans. We're not just talking about fitness here. There is a health aspect to it as well. And Ryan went through something 4 years ago whereby he had a bit of a health scare, which would involve cancer. And I think he's got a really important message about what needs to be done when he's out on a golf course.
My mum noticed like a little sort of freckle on the inside of my ear, which I didn't think anything of, but it actually started sort of growing in size. So I went down to the local GP, spoke to a doctor about it. He sent me on to see a dermatologist, and then like 3 weeks later, it was cut away. So I had to have some like cream that I used to put on the the scar and stuff every day, which was to kill off any other like leftover cancerous cells or whatever that was potentially harmful. 2 more cut out on my ears from then as well, so I've had 3 out in total.
Although you might have wore sunscreen and things like that, it wasn't something you were necessarily aware of at a young age.
I never wore sun cream as a junior, never. And I was constantly always having blisters on the top of my ears that would bleed or peel off at some point. And it's just something I just didn't even think of as a kid. The last thing I wanted to do was get sticky sun cream on my hands whilst rubbing it in on my arms and my face before I'm playing golf, because obviously when you pick up a golf club, your hands are very slippy after you touch sun cream. So I was kind of like, oh no, I'll be fine. You know, to be honest, I didn't really think about sun damages when I was a kid or when I was an amateur. It was just a case of just get on the golf course and play golf. How
much has your attitude towards that changed since then?
I will not play golf without sun cream on. Factor 50 is the minimum for me. It might be a bit overcautious, but I just don't want the risk of anything down the line. Because when you read up about obviously skin cancers and stuff, it's horrible. It's the sun is very dangerous. Although we all want a nice tan and to look good, it's something you've got to be really, really careful with. So for me, I won't play a golf tournament without the bucket hat on, just to protect the ears. Overseas and stuff, it's always factor 50 and get the bucket hat on. The countries I go to, the UV rays are a lot stronger. Australia, for example, the UV rays are very, very high. Even on a cloudy day around Europe, the UV rays can be very high. They're not as high in the UK, but the getting complications with the sun in the UK are still very high. So it is very important to still have sun cream on when you are at home or anywhere, really. We tend to think in the UK is that, we don't really get that great a weather. The sun doesn't feel that hot. It doesn't seem that strong. I don't need sun cream on. But especially kids and stuff, I think the idea of routine of making sure you get your sunscreen on before you go out, 4, 5, 6 hours on the golf course, because at the end of the day, you don't want any complications later on in life.
We don't do the simple things well. If you said to someone you're going to go and walk for 6 hours in, the sun, most people would think, right, okay, I need to put some sun cream on, I need to make sure I've got plenty of water. For some reason, when we do it on a golf course, we go, oh, well, we never do it. What golfers eat and drink on a golf course generally is terrible. They get nowhere near what they should be. You're out there for 5 hours, but most golfers don't eat anything, which is crazy, and they don't drink anything. And if they do take a water bottle out, they don't, they forget that it's even in there. We only need to be 1% dehydrated for it to start affecting cognitive performance. Golf is such a mental game, and you've got plenty of golfers playing golf dehydrated, thinking poorly. And if you ask them, they're not going to say, oh, it's because I didn't drink enough water while I was out on the golf course. They think it's swing related. They think they picked the wrong club, all these kind of things. They'd never put it down to the fact that they hadn't drunk enough while they were around on the golf course, or they hadn't eaten enough food and they were feeling fatigued. So this is something that I talk to juniors about. I also talk to tour players about, because the tour players are also not very good at it. If you were going to go and play football or rugby, you wouldn't have this conversation with them. They'd know that they need to prepare their body. They know that they need to get some fuel on board. But golfers, again, we're just not very good at it. You can have the knowledge, but a little bit like what Ryan was talking about, he didn't want to get sun cream on his hands, so he didn't put sun cream on. A lot of times, golfers, they don't want to get the sandwich out their bag and eat it because they're thinking about their next shot. Whereas if they had a caddy there, they probably would eat and drink a little bit more. There's plenty of studies out there about fitness, and it improves your confidence, it makes you feel good. There's a lot of work on there about fitness being very positive for mental health. I like my clients, juniors, to try and enjoy it. You can set that precedent that actually fitness isn't a chore, it's actually something that you quite like doing. We're all after that short-term success of, they're playing well this season, their handicap gets cut. But I like to have the kind of longer-term holistic view of, they will be healthier and fitter individuals for life because of some of the things that they're learning and some of the habits that they're ingraining now. So if you can make it fun and they enjoy it, then they'll, they should stick with it, and it will have positive impacts off the course and on the course.
My dad took me to the gym from a young age. I was 10, so when he first started taking me to the gym. Now I was only allowed to use a certain couple of bits of cardio. I was able to use like the old rowing machine and the bikes. I wasn't allowed to use the weights or anything. And I felt so good after those workouts. Even at 10 years old, I felt $1 million. I'm a big advocate of fitness, and I generally believe that it doesn't cure everything, at all, but it goes a long way to helping things in a big, big way. And mental health is especially a huge one, because it makes you feel so good about yourself.
There are some beautiful golf courses out there. Stick your head up and look at the golf course as you're walking around, as opposed to looking at your shoes. Hopefully the juniors, parents, golf clubs, other coaches out there can learn from what you've said, and also Ian as well, from his experience as well.
Fitness for golf is very new relative to other sports. We're quite a long way behind, but it is getting better year on year. It used to be an advantage to kind of be the one in the gym, whereas now it's like there's no one out on tour that's not training. McIlroy basically put on muscle mass and strength to protect himself. The biomechanics coaches worked out the level of kind of torque he was creating as a 16, 17-year-old. With his frame, he probably wouldn't have a very long career. They said he'd be done by kind of mid-30s, unless he changed his body shape and basically increased his body's capability to cope with the speed and the kind of the torque and the shear that he was putting through his golf swing. When he was young, he had a very rare thing where his hips could actually essentially move backwards. So he has the fastest hips on tour. The hip speed is what creates a lot of his club head speed and what makes him great, but also having that rapid hip speed and also rapid hip deceleration puts more stress on his body, which is why he turned to strength training. It wasn't for distance, it was to protect him and to kind of increase his longevity in the game.
Thanks as well to Ryan Evans as well for spending some time to talk to us, and best of luck obviously on the challenge stuff for him, and best of luck as well with Ryan Gavin as well. Let's hope, fingers crossed, that the injury doesn't come back and he has a long and successful career. And of course, thanks very much to Jamie for coming on the show, and everyone else, have a good evening.